The easiest and the best change management strategy is just talk to your people, have everybody be engaged. And the last thing I would take away on this one is another simple model. Potential minus interference equals performance.
What you really want is people who can adapt to the unknown. And because at the end of the day, what is innovation and transformation? It's taking you from where you're at now to somewhere that you don't necessarily know, but might want to get to.
A resume is a list of things that I never want to do again.
70 to 80% of all purchasing decisions are influenced by a woman. Let's face it. Let alone in the business, we don't see that representation. I would like to put out a stretch goal to the industry in 1 year, get to one-to-one personalization so we never have to talk about it again.
You're listening to the Retail Razor Show, where your expert hosts and their guests cut through the clutter in retail and retail tech.
Welcome to Season 5, Episode 4 of the Retail Razor Show, the original podcast in the always growing Retail Razor Podcast Network, where we cut through the clutter to give you sharp insights on what's happening in retail today and tomorrow. I'm Ricardo Belmar.
And I'm Casey Golden. Welcome, Retail Razor fans, to retail's favorite podcast and the only retail podcast in the top 10 all-time indie management podcast charts on Good Pods, where we get real about what's driving the future of retail. It's a show for product junkies, commerce technologists, retail leaders, and everyone else in retail and retail tech alike.
So before we talk about today's amazing guest, I just have one important ask for our listeners. If you like this episode, please go into Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Good Pods and give us a 5-star rating and drop a review, no matter how brief, even if just to let us know how much you loved it, or if you just want to let us know what you want to see us talk about next time. Either way, it really helps us grow the show and reach more people. And as you'll see for today's episode, reaching and supporting people in retail is one of the most important ways we can improve this industry.
I know you said one request, but let's not leave out our YouTube audience.
True.
If you're watching us on YouTube and like the show, please hit that subscribe button, smash that bell if you haven't already, and give us a like and drop a comment. We want to hear from you.
Absolutely. Well said, Casey. And while we're at it, this is a great time to ask our listeners and viewers to check out the other podcasts in the Retail Razor Podcast Network, including Blade to Greatness for the best leadership skills and career tips you could ever ask for in retail, straight from the best leaders in the business.
And then go give Data Blades a listen, where you'll get deep, practical insights into customer experience tactics you can use based on real-world research at the point of sale. If you're a data junkie like me, then you absolutely want to check out the Data Blades podcast.
And now there's our newest show just launched on the podcast network, Retail Transformers. If you're a longtime fan of this show, you know just what we're talking about. Candid conversations with the people driving real transformation in retail, the change makers, the innovators, and the disruptors, reshaping the industry from the inside out.
If you're passionate about innovation, leadership, and the future of commerce, Retail Transformers is the podcast for you.
So let's talk about today's guest, who many have described as someone who quite literally bleeds retail. From folding jeans on the floor to leading billion-dollar business transformations, our amazing guest, Shannon Flanagan, has seen it all and done just about all of it too.
There's something to be said about being able to fold jeans. She found her calling in retail at just 18, and honestly, thank goodness she did. Or we might have lost her to a courtroom instead. We'll hear more about that later. Shannon's built a career spanning startup scrappiness, Fortune 500 scale, global strategy, B2B, B2C, and retail tech.
She's currently a humanist, retail geek, change agent, and founder of Retail Women in Tech. Definitely something we are going to talk about in detail during our conversation. Amazing work being done there. And CEO of Retail Connected. But her superpower, it's really connecting strategy to people via community. She's a builder, a coach, and a connector at heart. And she's not just talking about change, she's creating it.
Shannon brings a 360-degree view of retail, from product creation to customer experience. And one of Shannon's most amazing accomplishments is founding the Retail Women in Tech, a growing community that champions inclusion, mentorship, and modern leadership in our industry. She's showing retailers how to think differently, by empowering the people who have been thinking differently all along.
So get ready. This episode's got insight, action, and a whole lot of heart that we think every listener and viewer will be able to use in both your retail business and your career.
Let's go straight to our conversation with Shannon Flanagan.
Welcome, Shannon, to the Retail Razor Show. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Shannon.
Hi there. Two people that I had love at first sight with. I'm excited to be here today.
This is exciting.
We've been following your work, and honestly, your energy is infectious. Before we dive into the really big stuff, let's start at the beginning.
Exactly. It's been said that you bleed retail, which I love, by the way, because it sounds so incredibly intense and insightful and filled with knowledge all at the same time. And I'll add, as I've gotten to know you, this just feels so appropriately true. So as Casey knows, I always love to throw in the odd movie reference, but as they say in the movie The Princess Bride, let's start at the beginning. And yeah, Casey's going to make fun of me later for that, so I'll pay for it later.
It's
But
a good one.
tell us.
It's a good reference.
Exactly. That's why I got to throw it in. So start by telling us your first retail job at 18. What about that made you fall in love with retail, and how did that keep you from going into some other field?
I actually have an exact moment that it happened. So I was working in the juniors department at Famous Bar, which is now the equivalent of Macy's. For those of you who know, the juniors department was by far the most intense and let's call it gross area. But we were merchandising the floor and I was dressing a gooseneck. Of all things, if anybody out there, I don't even know if they call them that still. And I got bit by a bug. And I, from there went into main merchandising and became a merchant and then a buyer, and then realized that I actually I'm a consultant at heart, is what I say. Consultant at heart, bleed retail. And it is through the journey, we'll talk a little bit more about it, that I realized my why, which was to create the conditions for people to love what they do every day. But thankfully, I decided to do so within the industry of retail, because I think the next question, or I believe one of the questions you talked about asking me is something like, did you ever think you'd be in retail 20 years later?
Exactly.
Well, one, you're too kind, because it's been way more than 20 years.
I feel like we just stop at 20, right?
Who needs to cat any further than that?
It doesn't need to go any further than that.
Yeah. So you'll see that I say
a bar
in all of my bios since I've been 18, let people guess, that I actually was a history major when I was in college working at Famous Bar, and I was going to go into law school. And God, I can't even imagine, like, it's contracts and details, something I'm not good. And like I was good at. And like I said, I feel so lucky that I found the industry that I did. Can anybody imagine me in financial services? My God. And the reason why I've stayed is because of the passion and the pace and the people. It's an energy that doesn't exist elsewhere. And you know it when you meet a fellow retailer. So that is what's kept me going for more than 20 years.
I always say that fashion is finance with a prettier facade.
Well, thankfully, there are other aspects of the industry that I could work in because I suck at finance, but I love fashion.
Well, that is a great perspective. I love that. So let's continue down the journey since those beginning early days. And let's see, you've worked across startups, across Fortune 500s, tech companies. What's something you've learned about change that only comes from seeing it across all those different environments?
I mean, the first moment that the concept of change and change management appeared on my radar screen was in 2002 with one of the largest specialty apparel retailers. I was consulting for them. I ended up going to work for them for many years, 2 tours of duty, in fact. And it was the first time that I realized how hard it was for people to change, even if it seemed like there was something being put in front of them that was worth doing. And what I realized, and this is still true to this day, in fact, they say that the needle really hasn't moved in terms of the effectiveness of strategic transformations, is that change is a constant. It's not a project. People treat it like comms and do some training, and it just doesn't work that way. So that is, you can see that evident. It doesn't matter if you're a startup or a Fortune 500 company. Now, startups, just by nature, right, are more agile. They have a fast nature, the pace of change. They suck at change management, to be honest, internally, where the Fortune 500 companies like completely over-engineer it. So I'll keep it simple, you guys here. I swear the easiest and the best change management strategy is just talk to your people, have everybody be engaged. And the last thing I would take away on this one is another simple model. Potential minus interference equals performance. So these are my observations and my over 20 years of experience at any size retailer or tech company or consulting firm.
You know, one thing that being on the fashion side of the business and like on that retail side, failure equals fired. And we have a culture of that. And in tech, it's fail fast.
Yes.
Right.
And you get to keep your job. Like you're celebrated for getting to know really fast and why it doesn't work. Where there's 65,000 people applying for your job every day on the fashion side of the business.
Wow.
You know, like
I know I'd learn at least one new thing. I'm sure
everybody wants your job, right? You're replaceable.
Right.
You know, there's a fear of change. There's a fear of standing out. And then there's this, so like there's a culture clash right there, just in the methodologies and framework in which you work
for sure.
to change. And then you mentioned agility when you talked about startups. And that kind of goes into that change. And even if it makes sense, on the startup side, we are really taught to build the scooter, not the car. But the customer, the brands, they want the car.
They want.
Yeah.
They don't want the scooter.
But you know what I think something that might be more interesting, I feel like, is that this is anecdotal, right? This is not based on the 20 plus years of experience, is I'm wondering if I see retailers more accepting of the scooter because of the rapid pace of change in technology right now. Right? It's moving so fast. You can't get the car. The car's already out of date by the time you build it. Right. So I'm curious.
100%.
What's there?
Yeah.
I'm seeing the shift. The shift is starting to be talked there, but it's been a journey to get to just being able to have like a meeting of the minds. To understand how they work on both sides, to figure out how to get a project approved and through the goalposts.
Yes.
Yeah, I keep saying ever since the pandemic, one of the main retail lessons learned, and I've talked to a handful of CIOs about this, where they finally realized that, every project doesn't require 6 months of planning and 6 months of execution. Things can actually be done to maybe 80% in 6 weeks if you really try. And I think a lot of retailers learned that in the pandemic, where things were so crazy. If you couldn't pivot and adapt in 6 weeks, you just weren't doing anything.
Yeah.
And that might mean closing. So I think it was a strong lesson to learn. And I think that's what's put everyone on that path that says it's okay to iterate. It's okay to get 80% done and try it and then figure out how to make it better over time, instead of waiting till you get 100% and having it take 9 months.
And the reality is, guys, the technology is so much easier to use. Like, again, please rewind to the turn of the century, right? We were asking people to go from Excel into something really clunky. You needed to have much more extensive training. And now technology by itself, and it should be, all technology should be built. This is one of my spiels when I was, in tech, was it should be as easy to use as your iPhone. And it hasn't been that way, but it's becoming more so. So
it's becoming more so. I'm a big advocate that all tech is consumer tech. Like I'm 100% for B2B interfaces completely. I'm like, you are a consumer. You use it all day, before and after work, in the middle of work.
Exactly.
Why do we work in ugly screens?
We're not going to name any names.
No, not at all.
We'll have a laundry list of those we could identify. And
yes, there's no shortage.
Yeah.
I just heard somebody was implementing AS400. So
no kidding. That's one of the things I use as an example. No. You're not.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, no.
I used to say that the only way that thing's going to die is when all the people who know the software actually die. But now it was a new business model, right? A revenue stream somebody could come up with to make sure you still had people who know.
Yeah. Like, do you want an introduction? Like, no, I think I'll wait on that one. Thank you.
that would be when your organization would have like parties celebrating the birthday of one of those systems. And it turns out that, that birthday you were celebrating, the system was older than most of the people in the room.
Exactly.
Speaking of people.
Now, yes, this is a really unexpected but brilliant transition.
It's all about people.
All about people. You're a strong advocate for redefining what the right person looks like for a role. What do companies get wrong when they're hiring for innovation or transformation?
Well, and I would say, first of all, innovation and transformation should be at the core of everything that we're doing, right? We just talked about rapid pace of change, and that change is the constant. And so fixed mindsets don't fit anywhere, right? So, okay, so let's say, of course, we all want to hire growth mindset people. But, what I've seen, and I know you guys have seen it and been seen your colleagues and your friends be trapped by this, is we hire like-minded people. We hire people who came from the top 10 schools, who came from maybe the same cities, who, speak the same languages as we do. We don't celebrate the diversity of just backgrounds. And we want people to fit into the mold. Like when people say cultural fit, I think that can be dangerous. Yes, it's important. I'm not denouncing that.
We all know what cultural fit means.
Yeah, you're like me.
They're like me. Yeah, that's what it's kind of meant.
And I mean, the science, guys, is out there. I don't know what it is. So again, don't quote me. I didn't get this from ChatGPT. This is tribal knowledge. It's something like you need 5 or 7 different perspectives to solve a problem effectively. And one of the companies I worked for that I loved, in every conference room, they had a sign, a plaque that said, "Have you sought a contrasting opinion?" So that's what I think about the right person is. It's beyond what you're thinking about today and questioning that. And let's face it, you guys, D&I, dirty word, whatever, put it aside. Right needs to be a much more expansive, right, or inclusive. Oh, I just used one of the words. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when I look at it, is I'm so conscious that I'm not so many people's target market, that my experience only covers A, B, L, and W. I have so many blind spots because my experience is narrowed to a certain area. And so I'm so conscious of seeking out other people's opinions that have grown up in different areas, went to different schools, come from different backgrounds, because it's like, what do you see? We're both looking at the same thing, but we see completely different things. And I see it as reducing risk, reducing so much risk and an opportunity to increase productivity, because I know that I'm probably not the target demographic for most people's companies. And it is one of those things that I think I want my customer base. I would want my team building to be part of that customer base, but it is one of those interesting things where people are making those hires and you're hiring somebody to do an undefined task almost. I want you to innovate. I want you to transform. That's not fully designed into a checklist of these are the exact things I expect you to do on a day-to-day basis. And so do we find comfort in hiring for these roles in somebody who we can relate to and feel that culture fit, because we don't feel the comfort in the job?
Well, and
because there's so many.
I think this notion of comfort in jobs is being blown up as well, because every job is being so disrupted by AI. So I don't think there's going to be the same checklist, right? If I was in creative ops a year ago, my job looks really different than it does today, right? And so I think that's when we think about every candidate should be thinking in an innovative, sort of transformative way. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this, or I will continue to talk about it. One of my big topics is our celebration and appreciation for skills that are transferable, right? So that you are bringing diverse points, right? And we'll talk about, my passion, retail women in tech here in a few, but partly it was born out of this idea, right? How do you bring these different perspectives into solving the complex problems of our industry?
Yeah. And
I started, sorry, Ricardo.
No, I'm just gonna add, I think one of the things that so many people miss sometimes on this, when you're looking for a pattern, right? You're looking for like-minded, but at the end of the day, what you really want is people who can adapt to the unknown. And
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, what is innovation and transformation? It's taking you from where you're at now to somewhere that you don't necessarily know, but might want to get to. And if you only ever have people that share the same viewpoint, you're only going to make it to that destination if it just so happens that that's the viewpoint that applies. And that's not always true, right? Sometimes you need a different perspective to understand how to get there. And that only happens if you have a mix of viewpoints to help you find what that definition is.
Well, I think you nailed it something too. And we're looking at I hate the phrase. I'm sure there's a better one for it. Soft skills. But those people who thrive in the uncertainty, right? They love the creation of it. They ambiguity doesn't scare them. That's not where everybody thrives, right?
Right.
But
I love that space.
And so, yeah, I love that space too. And so when you think about it, right, maybe it's less, you have 20, 30 years of retail experience. Therefore, I'm going to hire you. It's rather looking at what's the energy and does that person like to create something out of nothing, right? Or challenge the status quo. And so these are attributes of people that don't always pop on a resume either. So it's a different type of questioning. And I think this is key to there are new leadership qualities that are emerging that are going to be required and necessary in this day that have not been true before, that I think we'll see more and more that are of this ilk.
I just saw, I don't know, I think it was like an Instagram post, and it says, a resume is a list of things that I never want to do again.
Oh my God. So when you ask me something later, all right, I'll fast forward. One of them is that I've gone through a journey of, I've known what I've wanted to do for a long time, but it's been a process of what don't I want to do? And what am I no longer willing to deal with or tolerate?
Yeah.
Right. So,
well, it's like, it goes into that, like, you're hiring for transformation, you're hiring for innovation. And a lot of this hiring is looking at if you've done it before. Well, if I've already done it before for somebody else, we're not really innovating here. It's more about, let's talk about what I'm interested in, where I see the industry and what's trending and what technologies are out there that I want to go put my hands on and build with, and where I see the industry going. You can take a look at like my laundry list of like my to-done list.
Yeah.
But like,
brilliant.
You can take a look at the to-done list, but the most interesting conversation is, if I give you a budget and resources and this is our business, what would you want to do with it?
Oh, love it. Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
And I don't free insights and advice during that interview process.
Right.
Right.
Because it is somebody who's going to be passionate.
Yeah.
Is going to have that energy and might be a little bit, cray off the wall with some like, really? That's kind of interesting. You think we could do that in 5 years? You think we could do that in 2 years, in 6 months? Really? And I think it would be much more interesting to look at those types of perspectives and hire more on the vision side that can execute. Because it's very interesting. Some of the best hires just have different viewpoints, like you said. And that kind of brings us to something you're very passionate about, with women comprising nearly 48% of the retail workforce.
I've even heard higher. So this is where
I've actually heard higher as well, but I can't verify it at the moment. I couldn't find it.
ChatGPT, aren't you supposed to? I'm just kidding.
I know, right? And a mere 12% of CEO roles in retail. There's clearly a leadership representation problem. The disparity inspired you to establish Retail Women in Tech, or RWIT. And, this is something very close to me, as trying to find a community of like-minded individuals and brain capacity, if for lack of a better word. Supply chain brains, retail brain. There's just a little different. We work with spider webs all day.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think everything that we've been saying up to this point is why Retail Women in Tech was born and exists today. Now, I'm going to let you in on a little secret that now will be amplified to the entire industry, is that it wasn't even my idea. I was doing something with a woman who had just left the business, gone into tech. I had gone from the business into tech, and she's, I'd not met anybody like you. And when we think about this notion of opening the aperture of what you want to bring into your org, I was brought into a GM role to help verticalize a platform that had been horizontal and help bring retail and consumer goods to them and to their product to the market. Somebody took a chance on me. And I didn't fit in. I mean, I'm an outlier in general, right? I'm not a square, but I was going to say I'm in a square peg and a round hole, but certainly not a square if anybody knows me well. But what was really clear is that we don't have a community that's inclusive of everybody within all of the aspects of our industry. And how do we create these connections such that we can go explore, be innovative, learn more from one another? And you guys look at the conferences, walk the floor at NRF, no offense to NRF, tells you why there is a need for us to create a community. And this community is not just women, and it's not just if you're in tech, it's really everyone, because we want to bring together people so we can make sure that who's sitting at the table better reflects. Casey, you said it. 80 said something along the lines, I'm going to riff on. Yeah. But I think this stat is pretty well confirmed, but let's go with it. 70 to 80% of all purchasing decisions are influenced by a woman.
Yeah.
Let's face it. Let alone in the business, we don't see that representation. God knows what it looks like in tech or in, we'll talk VCs, media, et cetera. So I rambled. There you have it. I could talk about this topic uninterrupted for an hour, but I'll let you guys continue with some questions.
Let's
too many more fun.
I'd love to narrow in on one thing. So, I mean, that's a great picture of why this needs to exist, why do it, right? I'm curious to know what makes you decide at that point. It's one thing to say, boy, there's a need for this, but then it's another to say, I'm going to go out and create it and make it happen. And notwithstanding the secret you just shared, that it might not have originally been your idea, but you've gone out and built it.
I did.
So what really gave you the motivation to actually build it?
Yeah. So in fairness to my own hard work, the woman whose idea it was ghosted me from the very beginning. So the idea was with me for a couple of months, and then I never have I seen or talked to her since. And that was 2 years ago. But we relaunched it last year on International Women's Day. And the why is that I've always wanted to create the conditions for people to love what they do every day. And I think we mentioned the word spiderweb career, and I am a poster child for it. You guys, I started as a merchant. I was going to be a lawyer. Let's not forget about that. History major, lawyer, but as a merchant, and then I was a buyer, then a consultant, then a change practitioner. I worked the majority of my career. I have to do the math now. I don't know if it's the case anymore. Was working for, some of the biggest retail brands and across the globe. And something that happened to me, and this is part of the story, is that I got bored, right? Casey, I think you nailed it. I was like, I have been solving the same problems in retail over and over and over again. And I'm
every season.
Every season. And as folks know, if I ever had to look at a pipeline product to market calendar again and solve Chinese New Year, it would be too soon. And so
I feel that.
that's just one of many examples I can give. So I looked at my portfolio of skills and was like, I don't have business development and I don't have tech. And somebody within tech took a chance on me, and I tried my hand as an account executive. Now, a year into it, I was like, WTF, what did I just do to my career? And then I went back into consulting, and then, guys, I went fully into tech as a GM. And it was through those experiences that it was like, we don't have a community of people who want to do those things or how to do them and how to be supported through this. And now, you guys, I'm starting a nonprofit and I'm a writer. I'm writing a book. So I would say that, taking these risks, and Casey, you said it, and I'm going to shut up here. I knew what I wanted and I knew what I didn't want. And in our spotlight series that we do every week, Power of We Wednesdays, do you know every single interview, and I bet we've done now maybe close to 40 or 50, everyone has had a spider web career, and there is this myth around a linear path.
Yeah. I mean, I was also plucked. I was leading an M&A deal, And I was the glue between I was hired by both companies to transition, and I had to move the entire business off of all the systems. And I ended up getting plucked by one of the people that was running one of the systems that was going to the other system and saying, we want to take her with us.
Because they saw who you were, right? They saw, if you'd handed in a resume for that role, what do you think? Would you think
I would have never gotten the job.
Yeah.
But like being able to be in that period where I'm like, I was hired for this, but like I'm spending, over 50% of my week with the CEO and the CTO and like drawing up wireframes and user journeys because we need to customize the tech for this business and we need to migrate. I was able to just kind of go and do it because I understood the business side so well. And I was technical enough that I knew how to have the conversations and get things done. But I got plucked just, and I mean, I'm thankful for that moment. It completely screwed up my resume.
Well, but I couldn't have done, if I had not had that WTF year, I couldn't have done the jobs I had done subsequently. I would have been a horrible GM of a tech company, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is taking that chance on someone, and it's not necessarily, it wasn't a paper route, right? It was a person to person route, being able to work with somebody, being able to tap into the energy and the talent and the ability to work in that ambiguous environment and just get shit done, right? So I do think it's very important that we mention that, because that is the kind of people that I see when I'm part of RWIT, that I'm getting connected to more of these amazing, innovative, energetic people that still love retail and tech 20 years later.
For sure. Yeah. And Casey, when I thought about it too, like tech companies, they're desperate to bring more people from the business. They also want more women. And you touched on, every technology should be consumer facing, right? Women should be also at the forefront of designing those technologies that just aren't truly customer facing, but also consumer facing, that support the retail operation.
The shopping experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a pipeline problem as well. So that's part of one of the big initiatives within RWIT is how do we build talent so that tech companies can do it? Because like we said, 29% in retail, we don't have the numbers for tech. I actually want to commission a staff next year. I got somebody in mind to go, how bad is it? Because I bet it's like 10.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, there's a great book out there called Invisible Women, and it's like data bias in a world designed for men. And there's another book that I can't remember the exact title, but it goes through almost every innovation and product design on the difference of it would have been designed differently if a woman would have designed it. If a woman had designed it, the seatbelts would have worked for men and women.
Yes. I remember when I found that out. I was like, well, no wonder why it's always been a problem.
No wonder 60% of us more die in a car accident. And we're always putting it over. The average height is 5'4" or 5'5". But yeah, it's really interesting because it does give like some side-by-side comparisons. Some of it is in architecture as well, and like how our homes are designed, where outlets are. And something said that like almost every window in a downstairs home would have had storage and a bench near it.
Yes.
Versus the way that have it now. So there's just a couple really interesting things when it comes to that. And I want to see if women are running, let's say 80% of consumer purchases, whether or not it's for men or women,
right?
General population. Why can't women have the right to build and have the access to build the software that we're going to use and make some of those design changes so that there is that option?
Yeah. And you kind of highlighted it earlier, right, with the numbers you had on that leadership gap. Yeah. Right. So I think if we zero in on that a little bit, the question I have for you, Shannon, related to RWIT here, And what do you think causes this disconnect, and what can you do to fix it, right? Because there is an obvious gap.
One, I don't think we've talked about it enough. So I'm projecting my own experiences. So I've been in retail since I was 18. And now, granted, I grew up in specialty apparel, primarily in department stores. So I'm sure this would have felt different and, maybe groceries or consumer electronics. But I always thought women were really well represented. And I looked at my peers who were in other industries who were dealing with very different having very different experiences than I was having. I dealt with Mean Girls clubs, but I looked around the table and sometimes thought there's not enough diversity, but on the other side. So I didn't really start to experience what other women have in other industries until I went into tech. And that's for a variety of reasons. But nevertheless, one, because I don't really fit retailers. Us retail ladies don't conform all that well into the typical tech environment. But I think that there were assumptions. And I think now that there's numbers being revealed, and that's why I feel like we need to do even deeper studies around the true representation of women, not just who are working at retailers, but who are working in other aspects of our business. So that is, like I said, a priority I hope we're able to do next year. But, as I came back to the change management thing, guys, I believe in just talking. We're having the conversation now. It starts with awareness. And it starts with, again, to use the phrase, opening the aperture of what leadership attributes are going to be needed. But even before we get to leaders, and we're talking next gen, is tech companies think differently. You can train people to do some of these things. You can't train passion, right? Or you can't train some of these other softer skills that we've, I think, undervalued because they don't show up on our laundry list, on our resume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of soft skills, especially in retail, that don't get the attention that they deserve because a lot of times, when you were running retail, you didn't have software. You had a very finely tuned, taste, a very good, you knew if something was off, you could just feel it in your bones.
Yeah.
Everybody knows a dog is a dog is a dog as soon as you see a dog. You're like, this is not going to sell. We need to dump it. There's no proof. You're right. There's no software. There's no data analytics that are telling me this is not going to sell. So I can definitely.
Well, and you guys, I think to add to that, right, we've been, and I speak about this generically, I'm not going to pick just on an industry, but the way that we have been succeeding to date is sadly to conform, which I have had to struggle with my entire career. And really being that I live a very authentic life, that's been something, the conformity was a struggle for me because I felt at times I needed to or not. And, we all need to edit ourselves, right? But women often compete with one another. And that's heartbreaking to me. And it's what I feel like the kimono's been opened a little bit more to me on that, on how much opportunity lies for women to be better advocates and sponsors for not just the women underneath of them, but their peers as well.
Yeah. Being part of the startup community.
Yeah. This one.
Learning how to ask for help was the hardest thing to adapt to and to learn how to ask for help, because it was something that on the corporate side, I'm going to go find out all the answers. I don't need any help. I will be back and solve this without any help. And so that was a big shift. And this having more startup founders around you where we're all learning this, asking for help in this, it's a very female community about this asking for help stuff. I'll ask for money, no problem. I need $3 million. This is how I'm going to spend it. But I need help spending it, never would come out of my mouth.
Oh, girl, you and I would be, we would be a perfect match made in heaven. The exact opposite.
I'll never ask for help. And so being in these communities and I thought it was just a me thing. until I started being part of communities like RWIT and these around more like women founders, that it's not a me thing. It's we're all kind of working on this and being able to see like, great. And getting to meet people who are a step or two steps ahead of you.
Yes.
To be able to kind of like shine the light on your path and have those resources has been instrumental, regardless if I had gone the startup route. It's changed who I am as a leader and as an operator, because I don't think I would have learned it had I not gone out into the startup world.
Well, let's talk about the VC world, because obviously I have not had experience yet, because I actually have a tech idea, which never would have thought that. So to anybody who's disrupting the linear path, come follow mine and follow this craziness. But I've heard too often, and it almost makes me want to cry. It is making me tear up, that female founders, it's the female VCs and it's the female business leaders who are the hardest on them. What the hell? So let's talk about, we were talking about this. This is just something we're both really passionate about.
You didn't know we were going to say this out loud, Shannon.
Pardon me?
You're definitely going there.
Out loud.
Say what out loud?
That it's been the women that have been the roughest on some.
Oh, you didn't know? Oh my God, Lily, shout that from the rooftops. Like, I thought you were like, we were having a...
Everybody in the back can hear.
So, I mean, but
you're not wrong.
Yeah.
Completely different process in my experience, completely different pitch process, relationship building process. It's like night and day. I can't even compare what that initial introduction and call looks like. They're drastically different.
Yeah.
Drastically different. And, women are receiving, this year last year was 1.8% of venture funding from the stat I got. So it's not okay. And even fewer have access to follow-on capital that enables that real scale. I know a lot of companies over the last 18 months that couldn't raise a Series A. And some of that, unfortunately, does come from having women investors that came in that seed, but their funds weren't large enough to write a $10 million check.
Yeah.
So it still needs those allies and that partnership across all genders that just see an opportunity to make a lot of money and change a lot of design and increase conversions or, impact business in a way that hasn't happened yet. Because there is all of these amazing operators in retail that are also Excel junkies. They are super users of Excel. And anything that can be put in an if and then statement can be built into and automated. And so being able to take a lot of these operators in retail and just set them over here in tech, it's seconds. It was so much easier to learn how to code than it was me spending 25 years in French.
Yeah.
And where did that come from? It came from Excel formulas.
Well, again, Tracy, this is why we can be two sides of the same coin. But oh, by the way, I'm going to do a quick tangent. We have these interns, and we just told them the other day that you used to not be able to have two people in an Excel document at the same time, and their eyes just
and it blew their minds.
Yes. Yes. The eyeballs almost popped out. So yeah, we've come a long way, baby.
Right?
Collaboration. Who knew?
We've got less than 2% of venture going to women. We've got women-led VCs raised 3.7 of venture funding, which is definitely an increase.
Yeah.
And then even women that are co-founders, where they have that male technical founder, let's just say, it's stereotypically, that's the way it is. So let's just say it.
Yeah.
Their raise is still only 20%.
Yes.
By adding that co-founder. So it's still a discouragement for getting engineers to bootstrap with you, for being able to onboard enterprise customers because they fear that you're not going to be in business because of how difficult it is out in the world, in the narrative and media, that only this percentage of women tech founders or women get funded. It's generating its own risk.
Yep.
And kind of multiplying on that risk.
Well, and this is where with RWIT, right, we are building, right, and wanting to write the community for founders. And I think retail is ripe for female entrepreneurs and female VCs, et cetera, and retail female VCs. Let me do Is that 2 + 2 = 4? Help me with my math.
I think that 2 + 2 could equal like 200 these days. Yeah. Get the founders and the VCs together. I think you're going to see a lot more larger multipliers.
Yeah, well, and better product, as we said, and not because this is never women are better. We're different. I use the example of, I was just with a lot of friends this weekend, and again, there are spectrums and none of these things are hard and fast observations, but the way mom runs the home and does things with the kids is different than the dads. Not one or better or the worse, but they are different. And so if you think about that in terms of, it's software development, right? Or all of these cool new ideas that are out there, God, how many are being suppressed?
Like how we shop, how we filter, right? Like filters and exclusionary filters are a huge pet peeve of mine. I don't need to filter what I want. I just need to filter out what I don't want.
Yes.
That's not something that is done in any type of digital or shopping experience or whatnot, except over in my world. But I always like to say there is like a consciousness that bleeds across all women. And that is, you can walk into any kitchen that a woman lives in, and that you know what drawer the silverware's in. Do we not? You don't even have to know them. You don't have to be friends. You don't even have to be in the same country.
I knew I was going to learn a lot today. That was not one of the things I was going to thought I would learn. That was not on my bingo card.
That one wasn't on your bingo card.
User experience, right? Like that is core user experience. Yeah, I can walk into any guy's house and I'm like, where's your silverware? Why are the glasses over here? But it's just something that we do have there's a user experience of the way we use things that is natural. And a lot of the software that we use on a daily basis to shop and to purchase is not aligned with that. And it's an unnatural experience because it really wasn't designed by a woman for a woman or tapped into the psychology of that workflow or the business flow, because it's also all these women were working in the operators in retail. There is a workflow.
Oh, yeah, really?
Yeah.
People forget about this.
Right. So then we get technology and then it's telling us to do things different. And we have to try to change. We're expected to change our business on retail to fit this technology that has no idea how we run the business.
Well, and that's why this is like a no-brainer to me when it comes to, and I think why RWIT has had this, it has been crappy. We're growing up right now, guys. It's going to be an incredible year. Yeah. It's been an incredible year. It's going to be an amazing few years ahead. And I've got something even more to share there with you. But it's because there is so much untapped opportunity and so much untapped talent. And, we really believe that we're doing this we believe in the power of one-to-one connections. And so, Casey, I think you mentioned that you meeting Kim, et cetera, because we do believe that it is through that's how the change is going to actually be made the fastest. And given everything that's going on in our political climate, that path, which was one path of achieving greater representation, is no longer one that is going to have the same legs. So how do we bring tech companies closer to the business and the business closer to tech? And then we want to make sure we're friends of consultants and everybody, right?
Oh, of course.
How do we foster through the professional development, through the mentorship, through the events that we put together? Because that's how people also get hired. That's how people have somebody take a chance on them, like you said.
Right.
And so somebody asked me earlier today, what makes us unique or different? And I don't know exactly the answer to that quite yet, but I think it really is this idea of the one-to-one and unhinging or unlocking these doors or barriers that have so wrongly existed. And it's not even just between business and tech. It's if I'm a planner and I want to become a merchant, right? That has not been, well accepted. So I think that those are really important. And we've talked a little bit about allies here. And Ricardo, I would say you, hands down, you are a great. You're a great. I don't want to use poster child because I use that on myself, and it was a better analogy. But you're a remarkable ally. And that's how we also change. And that's why the RWIT platform is inclusive of allies in anything we do.
Yeah.
And I think that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Is because
absolutely.
I have so many of my mentors and the people that have lifted me up have been men like Ricardo.
Yeah.
That put me up front. I've had somebody pick me up, drop me off at a conference and say, I want you to go and introduce yourself to at least 100 people. You're a badass and everybody should know you. I'll pick you up in an hour. Here's my pass.
I had a similar experience once. Yeah.
Here's my pass. Put me out there and saying, I expect you to meet. And I was just like, oh my God.
Well, that might have been an unrealistic ask by someone.
Well, but it was forcing somebody just forcing me to say, you belong. You belong to be in this space. I'm going to drop you off. Here's my pass. Just go. You belong in that room. You should be there. And I think that those allies is one of the biggest things. It is something that sets you apart from a lot of the others. And you're getting more momentum and velocity than I've seen in the last 10 years of creating any type of community group like this. So I just think, credit is due where credit is deserved. And it's very exciting to see what you've done in here.
Yeah. Yeah. And on that point, even too, because I think that Casey's example is a really good one. And I think maybe the key part there was that it kind of provided that idea that you do actually, there's every reason to belong and you need to recognize that you belong and just go, right? I think that was probably the most important part of that experience is when they told you to just go, to do it. Don't let anything stop you. But I guess the question I have here on allies and allyship for you, Jen, when someone's listening to us talk about this, what's the one takeaway you want people to really have from that about being an ally?
Well, one thing as I realized is that, and I continue to do this, so I'm gonna put this out to the audience, that do we all think that allies equal men?
No.
And do we have the opportunity to expand it? I've used the word ally for men and advocates for women, but let's that's not neither here nor there for us to solve today, but it's something that's top of mind. But that being said, when I think about allyship, it's for both men and women to be mindful. And I can't take credit for that. That's somebody who spoke on our panel that talked about that we can be thoughtful, but it's being mindful, and being mindful is being in that moment. And what's happening inside the room, but also what's happening outside of the rooms that you're in, and the types of conversations and the types of opportunities. And how are you? There are times that we're going to have to be proactive and incredibly, kind of overconsciously bringing people in to the conversation. But when they're not in the room, what's going on there too? And so that word mindful in and outside of the room is the simplest takeaway, but I think probably the most powerful.
Speaking of allies and that mindfulness, do you have a specific example or story moment that you've had somebody's allyship has changed your trajectory?
So candidly, I'm going to say too many to count. so many that have inspired me. And so rather than giving a specific example, I'm going to give you a specific moment where allyship hit me through like in the middle of the eye, whatever that expression, middle of brought me in the eye. I don't know. You get it. Go with my visual here.
Yes.
It was at Shop Talk a couple of years ago, and Kimberly Manor, a friend of all of ours, was on stage, and they were talking about allyship, and she threw out the question like, how many of you have had male allies or more male allies than female allies or advocates? And that's when it hit me. I was like, square between the eyes. I think I got it right. That's when I realized, oh my goodness, even though I've grown up thought I'd grown up with almost largely female leaders, et cetera, the case was that it's been more often than not men. In fact, the large majority. And that's where I thought we need to change that. And that's also at the core of RWIT is like, gosh, we can keep going with allyship, right? Where we can obviously we can get better and better and better there, but we have an opportunity that we're not talking about for women to be better. So we're all allies. Let's put it that way.
We're all allies. And
right.
It's men and women. You know, I always say lift the talent regardless. Lift the talent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things we're talking about, so we have a mentorship program, but one of the things we want to expand into next year, though, is bringing more men into the mentorship program. And because conversely, a lot of men talked about how powerful it was to have female mentors, right? So again, we also stuck mentorship into a gender.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense either.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I've heard some stories that I wouldn't have thought of. I haven't had a lot of female bosses in the past, but I've heard some stories about men and they're like, oh my gosh, sign me up. It's been the best part of my career.
Yeah.
Because I had clear direction or I knew exactly what I was doing or I got this or I got that. And I was like, oh my, I've never even thought about it on a role reversed, right?
Yeah.
Frankly, I never thought of it in the first place until it was, put directly in my face. And I'm like, oh, there's something going on here.
But I think that's a perfect example. And you guys keep out. What do we need to? We need to talk because
we need to talk about it.
Like, we had an aha moment. Well, that aha moment, right? You just sparked that. That's made a change in one person's life to another. Is one of the things we also talk about is quality over quantity, because for any session we ever have, we're like, if we changed one person's life at that session or at that event or whatever whatever it was that we did, then that has a ripple effect. And that's success for how it operates.
It's great. You talk about the mental load. What is this emotional toll on women navigating change in a system that doesn't fully support them at the moment?
Yeah, I mentioned this. I'm going to come back to it. Is this notion of conformity?
Yeah.
Compromise, competition, right? And the fear of bringing their authentic selves to work, and that's bringing their whole selves as whomever, right? Mom or not mom or whatever it is that maybe struggles with their family. So I'd like to believe that it's changing. I like to believe that COVID helped change that because we all got visibility to the shit in the rest of our lives just by even the video, and that with more and more working dads in the workplace, that has changed it. But the reality is, even though the numbers are much better, and I don't have any in front of me, but then even if they're better, we still are carrying more of the workload at home. And that's where I think it becomes challenging. So even as we make more and more progress in the workplace, we're still carrying more at home, and we're trying to make it all work. And our generation, Casey, assuming that you've been in retail as long as I have or close to it.
I have. We're just cutting it at 20, right?
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
We were told we could have it all.
Yes.
Oh, just lean in. Right. I think back of some of the narratives that
they don't want to do that, Paul.
Yeah.
Like, where's my robot? I don't want to drop my dry cleaner. I want you to come in, go into my closet and get it.
Exactly.
Just take care of it.
Yeah.
I don't even want to think about it. I just want to enjoy getting dressed in the morning.
Well, that will lead me to one of the questions you asked me later about what excites me about retail. But that's part of it right there.
Yeah.
We don't even have to ask it anymore. But
well, that gives you something to think about. I want to hear more about all the different things you're doing with RWIT. You talked about internships, launching a nonprofit arm to it, and just having a space for career exploration, right? What's your long-term vision for RWIT right now?
It's much bigger. So the nonprofit that we are getting ready to submit all of our final paperwork for in a couple of weeks is actually going to be for retail connections, because I believe that there is this opportunity that I was sharing that doesn't just exist within the space of RWIT, but really we're an inherently social industry, but we don't have a lot of communities, and we certainly don't have like this. And I'm being ambitious here, guys, and I don't have my elevator spiel ready to go here, but ultimately want to build like the premier hub for retail professionals to be able to connect in an easy way that's relevant to where they are, that supports the underrepresented voices. Because again, at this notion of connections and community at the core, the way we're going to make change is by bringing everyone together across all these different industries. So, and that will be through, obviously collaborations with tech companies and retailers, but I also want to look at, we don't have communities for sales executives within retail. We don't have communities for solution architects, right? On the tech side, we don't have communities for merchants. So the idea is that it'll be a larger platform or an ecosystem that we can better connect with one another through learning and development. One of the words I don't like to use is networking, by the way. It feels very transactional. It does.
Kind of gross.
So this notion is we really want to redefine how people do collaborate and connect and succeed in their career.
I think that's great. I had a big push on everybody in retail and everybody over in tech, like retail tech. They need to be friends because they don't even work in the same offices, and their industries do not that.
Well, okay. Sorry, Casey. Let's go back to, and this has not changed dramatically, is that within a retail or a brand, the business and tech hated each other.
They hate each other, and they don't even work in the same state.
Right.
For years.
They're nowhere near each other.
Yeah. They work
a little bit better, let alone a retailer.
Talk about siloed
company.
Yeah. I mean, I think that building that friendship and friendship reduces risk.
Yeah.
Right.
I know you. Right. And
I know
people say people buy from people they know. Like, my idea is not revolutionary.
No.
It's just how do we manifest, right? The way that and it is manifest the way everyone does business, but in particular in our industry that is full of so much passion, and the pace of change is so great, and that it's all around the people and the customer. Like, we can do better around how we support one another.
Yeah. So you touched on this earlier, and we don't want to let you slide by without responding to it. So let's jump a really quick retail tech question for you. So you mentioned that one point Casey was talking about was what excites you about retail, but there almost has to be like anything that whenever there's something that excites you about retail tech, there's probably got to be something that also worries you about retail tech.
Oh, 100%. So let's start with the worry, and then I'm going to end with the excitement.
Okay, perfect.
Having conversation.
Let's have it.
What worries me is women not being in AI.
Okay.
It sums it all up. I don't think we're probably allowed to cuss. We are effed as a society. If we don't have women in AI, we're only going to propagate more of the biases that already exist. There's so many reasons why. I don't have to beat the drum on this one, but that is also one of the passions of RWIT and working like with other organizations. And I don't have the answer, right? But how do we make sure that there are roles within tech and within the business, because the business is ultimately going to be at the hands of, running the AI. Yeah. So that's my biggest one.
Okay.
It's not a worry, it's an actual fear.
Yeah.
I think it's valid.
Yeah.
All right. So exciting. Excite me. Maybe the holy grail of personalization will be found. True personalization.
Yeah.
And maybe we could stop talking about it.
I know, right?
Because we've all been chasing it for how many years now?
Yes. So I added a wish there. But when I think about it, though, from the shopping experience, and we're getting here, but it's talk about even changing my own patterns. So yes, the world that Casey just described. But, I heard this story once at Shop Talk years ago, and boy, it really stuck with me. Back in the day, we had one way back, way before our time even. There was one store on Main Street, and that's where you picked out the dresses from there, right? And then it got more and more choice.
Or the Sears catalog.
Yeah, I only want to pick from 20. Now we can spend 10 hours looking for a dress or even more. Right. So when I think about now, I still don't think the technology is there. I have not found it yet to work for me. That I still feel like I do a better job of searching than the tech can. But I think in spitting distance that I'm not going to have to spend so much time page to page to page. And that excites me from a customer perspective.
Yeah, I think we're getting better. I think maybe part of the challenge has been that maybe we haven't all wanted to recognize that this is a moving target.
Well, personalization to me, the holy grail is one-to-one. What do you mean by individualized versus personalized? Or is that your distinction?
Personalized is what everybody says that they're doing, which is like customer profiles.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah, I want
individual personalization.
Me.
Yeah.
One-to-one, and then we can talking about it.
All right.
Yeah. There we go.
So for someone prediction, maybe I would like to put out a stretch goal to the industry in 1 year, get to one-to-one personalization so we never have to talk about it again. Great.
There you go. Heard it here first.
For someone listening who wants to join RWIT or support the mission, where do they start?
The easiest place to go is retailwomenintech.org. And you'll go there. You'll see a website designed by me. So no judgment. Remember, we're scrappy. And just a handful of volunteers who make all this magic happen behind the scenes. But you'll see a join RWIT button. And it'll take you through a process. Membership will always be free. We will be built upon a different kind of community model than many are modeled after when we do officially go live as a nonprofit. But also follow us on LinkedIn. We do events in a lot of different cities, and every month we do really cool session, be it on conflict resolution or how to navigate through change or what a career in retail tech looks like. So I hope you come and join us. Like I said, if I can't say it more, all are welcome. We should probably do a cute play on allies and all that stuff. I'm project for the interns.
There you go.
Love it.
Is there any one action that anybody listening today that you would suggest is something they can take right now to be part of this change?
Reach out to at least one person and tell them what they're doing well right now. Because we are living in incredibly uncertain times, and fear is rampant amongst your peers, the people who work for you on your team and your friends. Shout outs right now, I think they're always welcomed more than ever.
Absolutely.
And a shout out to you too, who I just adore.
So we'll right back at you.
Right back at
So
you.
excited. We finally made this happen, and I hope we get to do it again.
Well, Shannon,
Absolutely.
Thank you for your energy, your vision, and your leadership in the industry. We're so glad that you were able to share your story with us today and shared with us so much today about leadership and what that looks like. Allyship, and most importantly, just retail women in tech.
Yeah.
It was my pleasure and my honor.
Well, thank you so much, Shannon. And for all our listeners, we will, of course, have all the links to RWIT so you can find it. You won't have to keep hitting that rewind button to know where to go. And of course, we'll have some other info on all of the great work that Shannon is doing in the show notes. So, Casey, I think this episode is a wrap.
It's a wrap. If you enjoyed our show, we have a simple ask for you. Please consider giving us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Good Pods. Remember to smash that subscribe button in your favorite podcast player and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss an episode. As always, a huge thank you to our amazing Good Pods listeners for helping us consistently rise to the top 3 spots in indie management and indie marketing podcast charts with every episode. I'm Casey Golden.
Please follow us and share your feedback at Retail Razor on LinkedIn, Blue Sky, Threads, and Instagram. And if you want to preview highlights and transcripts from each episode right in your email inbox, please subscribe to our Substack newsletter. I'm Ricardo Belmar.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time, keep cutting through the clutter and stay sharp. This is the Retail Razor Show.